Hi everyone, and my name is Akhilesh Srivastav, and in this tutorial I want to show you how to build a multilingual website using Angular Translate. So Angular Translate is an awesome module which is written by Pascal Pritchett. Well, I hope I pronounce his name correctly, which can be accessed by visiting this URL, that is angular-translate.github.io. So here you will find excellent getting started articles and API details. So the getting started guide is very well documented and comes with tons of examples showing the implementation of its various feature and options provided by the Angular Translate. So here you can find great articles on installation and also on conceptual overview of this Angular Translate module. And we can also see how we can use this translate as a service directive, and also how we can use it as a filter. Going forward, it also talks about variable replacement, which is one of the cool features of Angular Translate, which I found quite useful. And it also talks about multi-language support. Apart from that, there are other cool features like storage, custom storage. We can also do a great amount of error handling, and apart from that, it also talks about a lot of events which is provided by the Angular Translate, and some security which we can also implement while we are implementing Angular Translate. The API reference guide is one of my favorite, which walks into the details of all the available methods of translate service and various options which is available for translate directive and filters. So I will highly encourage you to go through all the documentation before you start using it in your projects. So we will now start building our demo app. So for that, we will go ahead and create a new folder, and we will call our app as ng translate, and we will now open our terminal window, and we will go inside our folder, that is ng translate. Oops, it's tr. Okay, and then we will give the command npm init. So we will, as of now, just press enter, and so this will create our package.json file. Let's open this folder with our favorite ID. So I'm using brackets in my case, but you are free to use any any editor of your choice. So here it is. We will now go ahead and create a new file, and we will call it as bower rc file. So let's start by, so here we will say directory. Before that, we will go ahead and create another folder, and we will call it this folder as app. As inside this app folder, we will build our Angular app. So now we will go back to our editor, and here we will say directory, and we will give the path as app slash bower components. So here bower will install all the components which we require for our app. Let's save this file, and we will call this file as dot bower rc file. It should be rc. Okay, so once we have done this, we will now go ahead and install all the components which we require. So first thing we need is, so we need Bootstrap and jQuery. So once we install Bootstrap, so jQuery will automatically be installed as a dependency. So we'll go ahead and give the command bower install bootstrap. Once this completes, you can see that inside our app folder and inside our bower components folder, we can see uh, two folder has been created. One is for bootstrap and the another is one for jQuery. We will now go ahead and install Angular in the same way. So we will simply say bower install Angular, and we need Angular route, and we also need Angular sanitize. Once this is done, we now need Angular translate. So we will say bower install, sorry, it should be install, and here we will say Angular translate. So once this is done, we need one more plugin, and that one is Angular translate loader static files. So we need this. So we can copy from here and we can install the same here. After that we need gulp. So let's install that. So for that we will say npm install gulp. So once gulp is installed, so you can see inside our folder ng translate we will get another folder node modules, and all the gulp and its related files are installed here. After that we need to install one more gulp plugin, that is browser sync. So for that we will say npm install browser. So once this gets complete, we will go to our IDE and create a new file, and I will call this file as gulpfile.js. So let's go ahead and save it. So we'll call this file as gulpfile.js, and so here I am using gulp as just a build tool. So I am not doing anything for packaging our code. So for that reason I have only used this plugin browser sync. So I have created one task browser sync which will start a local server, and the base directory for that is app. And on line number 14 I have created one more task whose name is watch, and which is dependent on this browser sync task, and it will just keep an watch on all the folders which is inside our app folder, and basically it will keep and watch for all CSS, HTML and JS file changes. And finally I have created one default task which is dependent on this watch task. If you like to know more about the gulp build system, so for that you can watch my video on gulp whose URL can be accessed on the description below as well as on your screen as well. However, you can watch any gulp video. There are a lot of gulp videos out there, so you can watch any of them whom you like if you want to know more about gulp. So what I have done is I have already set up one sample Angular app. So here you can see we have three screens on this application. So this is the first screen, which just talks about what is Angular Translate, and if you click on about page, so it also just a sample text regarding Angular Translate. And then we have a contact screen where I have created a sample contact form, and if you see on your nav bar, you can find an option for select language. So as of now, this will not work because we haven't configured the same. And as of now, you can see this application is only on English. So we will now go ahead and include Angular Translate, and let's make this application multilingual. Before we include Angular Translate with our app, I would just like to quickly walk through the file structure of this application. So here we have one index.html. So here you can see it is just using Bootstrap template, and this is our navbar where we have the three links for home, about, and contact, and then we have a language selector drop down from where we can select the language, and then we have a ng view where we will load all our views. Let's quickly go to app.js. So here nothing much is happening. So we have just declared one Angular module, and we are calling our app as translate app. So here just I'm using ng route and ng sanitize. So here you can see I have configured three routes, that is home, about, and contact. And then if you can see I have four more controllers. So one is for navbar, and the rest three is for home, about, and contact. So as you can see, there is not much happening here because there is no as such logic associated to it. And we will just go ahead and quickly see the template. So this is the home template. So as you can see, it's all are just static text, nothing much happening here. Same way we have about and the our contact form. So this is also, you can see, it's a simple contact form which doesn't contain any logic, just a plain HTML. So we will now go ahead and include Angular Translate, and let's translate our app into multiple languages. So for that, we will go to our index.html and include the Angular Translate files. So we will say script src equals to bower components, and then here we have Angular Translate, and then here we have to use Angular Translate.js file, and the next file we need is browser components, and this is Angular Translate loader static files, and then here we have to include this JS file as well. After that, we have to include this Angular Translate into our app. So for that, we will go to our app.js, and here we have to inject this. So here we will say Pascal PSCAL Pascal Pratchett dot translate. Okay, and here we also have to inject one more provider, that is translate provider. So here we will say dollar translate provider, and same thing we need to pass here inside this function. And then we have to tell the Angular Translate what is our preferred language. So for that, we will say translate provider dot preferred language. So to get the preferred language, we can use our browser's language. So for that, we can say navigator dot language. So the browser's language will be written in the format like en-us or en-in, but our JSON files are in the format like en.json, cn.json. So in order to get that working, we have to use this method, and then we have to map our keys. So here we have keys like, so in our case we have English, then we have French, then we have Chinese, and the last one is Hindi. Okay, and then we have to map them. So if the browser language returns anything like anything starting with English, so for that we will use en, In the same way, if it is fr hyphen asterisk, so for that also we will use French. Let me give one space here, and the same way if it is cn hyphen asterisk, so for that we will use the language key as Chinese, and the same way if it is the language code is Hindi, so we'll use the key as Hindi. Since we will be loading all our translation from the static files, that is all the JSON files, so for that we need to use this method, that is use static files loader, and then we have to give some configurations. So this accepts one key, that is prefix. So we will keep all our translation inside the folder data. So let's put the folder name here. It can be any folder name, but in my case I choose to use the name data, but you can have any name of your choice. And then we have suffix, and so since all the file names end with .json, so we will just put .json. After this we need to call one more method, that is use sanitized value strategy. So here I am giving the strategy as null. This is because the Hindi fonts don't get displayed properly inside the placeholder attribute of the text box. So that's the reason I have to give null here. And one thing more, I have realized that this whole code should be the part of this config section. So let's move it inside it, and let's indent the same. So before we can use this translate service inside our controller, we need to inject the same. So here after location we need to have one more service, that is translate, and we need to pass the same here. Same thing we have to do for other three controllers. And let's pass the same here. And here too. After this, we will replace all our text inside our views with the translation keys. So for that, I have created one folder data, and I have placed all these files which contains translation and the respective keys. So let's open one file. So this is en.json file. So here I have created the keys like home link, about link, and likewise all the keys for all the screens. So we will now go ahead and replace our text with the keys. So let's start from the index.html. So here we can remove this home text, and instead we can say translate, and here we can call the key which is home link. Okay, let me copy this. So in the same way for about also we can say about link, Let's remove the extra space, and same thing for the contact. So here we can say contact link, and we can remove this text from here. So in order to test this, let's save this and reload our application. So here you will not see any difference, but when we will open the inspector, so here you can see Angular Translate has replaced the text with the corresponding keys. So if you can see here, we just specified translate equals to home link, but you can see this home text is actually inserted by the Angular Translate. Let's do the same for other text as well. So here, instead of select language, so let's add a span tag, and here we will say translate, and the name of the key is cell underscore length. The reason I have put the span tag here, because if I will not do and I will just attach this translate with this span tag, so it will actually remove this drop down icon. So for that reason, I have added one more span tag, and on that span tag we will put this translation key, that is select language. In the same way, here also we have to do the same thing. So here we will say translate equals to languages dot English, because this is the nested JSON object, so that's why we have to use the dot notation there. So let's do the same thing. Let's copy paste this. So here it will be French, Chinese, and Hindi. So we can also leave this text and it will be automatically replaced by translate, but let's go ahead and remove all this, and same thing we have to do here. Oops, so we should say translate equals to title, and let's remove it from here. After that, let's go to our home.html and do the same thing. So here also we will say translate equals to let me copy this because I have to use it everywhere, and the name of the key is main text. Let's go ahead and remove this. In the same way here, and the key is lead text. Okay, let's go ahead and remove everything from here. Okay, and same thing for the button, and we will, the name of the key is main button. Let's go ahead and remove this. So for this h4, so translate is head1, and this is text1. Let's remove this, and similarly this is, I think this is head2. Yes, this is head2, and let's remove this. So in the same way this will be text2. Let's go ahead and remove the same, and last but not the least, this should be head3. Let's remove this, and the last one is text3. Let's do the same. Let's go ahead, save this, and now we will move to about.html file. So here also we have to remove this, and here we have to say about dot page title. So here also it's a nested JSON object. So here you can say about, then inside that we have page title and page text. So here also let's call it as about dot page text, and we will remove all this. After that, let's move to our contact.html page. So here also, so here the translation key is contact.pg title. Okay, so let's quickly go and check the JSON structure. So here we have contact, and inside that we have page title, first name, placeholder, and all that. So let's come here and let's remove this label. Instead we will add this translate, and the key is contact.fname, and for the placeholder we will use the filter, translate filter. So for that we need to use the interpolation, and then here we have to say contact dot fname hyphen placeholder, and then we have to give pipe for filter and translate. So here we are using translate as a filter. We have to do the same thing for all the other form fields. So in order to save some time, I have already applied the translation for all the remaining form fields. So here, as you can see, I have applied the translation key for last name, same thing for placeholder for last name, email placeholder, and in the same way for phone, address, and for hobby. So hobby is also a nested JSON object. So if you see, we have hobbies, and then inside hobbies we have movie, walking, swimming, and all that. So for the label, I have put this contact.hobby, and for all the select options, so for that I have used contact.hobbies.movies. In that way we have given the translation key for all the drop down options. And for web address and comments, so it is also a text box and a text area. So here also it's quite same as we have done above. And for the button, given the translate key for this button by adding this extra span tag. So the reason is quite simple. If I would have done it here, it would have overwritten all these icons. So for that reason, I have created one extra span tag and put the translation key on that. So let's go ahead, save this, and run this. So here you can see this page is presented with all the translations applied on it. So in order to prove this, let's inspect any element. So here you can see, that for the label, so here you can see translate, and then here it is contact dot first name, and so the placeholder we will not see anything like that, because here we have used as a filter. So this is how all the translations has been applied to all our three screens. So till now you can see our application is always presented in English. So the reason for that is, in my case, the browser's language is written as en-us, but we can change it by hard coding any locale here. So let's give it like hi-in. So by doing this, our whole application will be presented in Hindi. So let's go here. So you can see our home page is in Hindi, all the links, even the language selector is in Hindi. If you go to about page, you can see everything in Hindi, and even the contact form is presented in Hindi. Looks like there is a typo in this translation key. Anyways, we will fix it. And here, one thing I would like to show, if you remember earlier I said for this use sanitize value strategy, I have given null. But if you give like sanitize, so if you save this, so you can see that these Hindi fonts are not displayed properly here. So that was the reason I have to give null here. So I faced this problem only for Hindi. For other languages it was coming fine. So that's the reason I put it null here. So let's change this back. Okay, so as of now, even though we have this language selector on our application, but as you can see, it is not working. So let's go now and fix this. So for that, we will come to our index.html, and here instead of href we can use ng-click, and we will create one function and we will call it as change language, and here we will pass the locale. So for English, let's say we have en-us. Okay, let's go ahead and copy the same for all the remaining three languages. So for French, we can say fr-fr. In the same way for Chinese, we can say cn-hk, and for Hindi, it would be hi-in. Okay, we will now go ahead in our app.js, and in our navbar controller we have to write one more function that is here, that is change language. So we will say $scope dot change language equals to function, and here we will pass the language code, and here we will say $translate dot use, and we will pass this language. Let's save it and test it. So now when we go to our app, and if we choose any language here, so you can see we have we choose the language French, and now the whole application is presented in French language. In the same way we can choose like Chinese, so now you can see our whole application is presented in Chinese language, and if you can see, everything is done on the fly, there is no lag. So if you click English again, you can again see your application in English language. Till now we have seen that there are two ways of specifying the language to our app. The first way was by using browser's default language, and the second way was by calling this change language function, which we call using the language selector dropbox. The Third option may be by specifying the query param, like something like this. So here we can specify one query param locale, and we can pass the locale ID, and by which we can force our application to display the specified language. So for that, we need to capture that query param in through JavaScript. So for that, we can write one JavaScript function. So this is the function get parameter by name. So this function is not written by me. I found this function at Stack Overflow, and it's a very useful function. And after that, we can say translate dot use, and then here we can say scope dot get parameter by name, and here we can pass the locale. So locale is the name of our query param, and let's save this. So here you can see we pass our locale as hi-in. So that's the reason this application is presented in Hindi language, but user is still free to change the language from this choose language drop box. We can test the same again by passing some other locale, like let's specify fr-fr. So now you can see this this application is being displayed in French language. Angular Translate comes with inbuilt error handling feature. Like to capture any missing translation, we can always use this extension, that is Angular Translate Handler log, which will capture any missing translation, and it will log the same. Angular Translate also comes with a lot of events which we can also use to capture any translation errors. So I have done the same here. So here I have captured this event translate change success. So whenever that translations is applied, we will console log this message like selected language applied, and if there is any error we can alert this message. In order to test this, we will go to our app, refresh it, and open it in inspector. So here you can see on console the message is displayed selected language applied. If we choose any other language, we can see the same. Now let's go ahead and create some error. So in order to do that, we will rename one of the JSON files. So like for Hindi JSON file, rename it to some other language, and now we will go ahead and refresh our application. So now if we choose Hindi, so here you can see this error message that selected language was not applied. So till now in this tutorial, I have tried to cover almost all the important features of Angular Translate, but there are still a lot of features available which can be leveraged as per the project requirements. In my personal opinion, one should definitely consider using Angular Translate if their websites or web applications displays legally important information to their customers or users globally, where 100% accuracy of the information displayed is extremely important. Otherwise, Google Translate service can be used to translate the web pages into different languages, where multi-language option is just a nice to have feature. So I hope you might have enjoyed watching my video. Your comments, suggestions, and most important critics are always welcome, which helps me to improve my future videos. I have posted all the source code to my GitHub repository, whose URL is provided in the description below. And once again, thanks for watching, and please subscribe if you like to.